Hi, this is Lucia with The Art of Love. This week I would like to talk about the major mistake that most people are making with online dating, and that is how they communicate. So after you've both swiped right, after you both matched up, and before you go on a date, before you meet up, you actually have to communicate. Yeah, I know. And people mess up here because they don't know what to say. And women are actually a lot pickier about this than the guys are. In fact, in some informal studies, they posted photos of hot women and then they had them say like the most outrageous things to the guys they matched up with to see at what point the guys would bail. And most guys hung in there no matter what the woman said, because they were probably just thinking, hey, I'm just going to have sex with her. I don't care if she's crazy. Maybe the sex will be better if she's crazy. So maybe that's why they hung in there. So you can get away with that with guys if you're a woman. But if you're a guy, this is where you blow it. And then you say, how come I'm not meeting anyone? My profile is great. Well, maybe it's what you're saying to the woman after you match up. So let's start with the guys. I find that people have forgotten the art of flirting. They've forgotten how to flirt, if they ever knew. Dating is supposed to be about having fun. And I find that guys online, often they're just too serious. I mean, this isn't a business transaction. They're too formal. And you need to be fun and flirty and, kind of poke fun at the person in a nice way, not in a mean way, obviously. Because people want to hang out with you. Why? Because they want to have a good time. They want to have fun. But if you're so serious, they figured that's how you're going to be in person, if that's how you are in your communication. So that's one mistake I find that guys make. Another major one is just sending one word in your first communication, in your first text, like hey or hi, or just how are you? It's like, come on. Don't be so boring. Especially attractive women, they get matched up with so many people that if you're just going to say hi and they're not really that interested, they're just going to unmatch you. Because it's like, come on, you're not even willing to put any effort in there. And the guys I know, they say, well, most women don't write back, so I'm not going to put any effort. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't put any effort, they don't write back. They don't write back, you don't put any effort. So why not put in a little bit of effort? Look at their profile, find something you can ask, and make that your first email instead of just the usual, hey, how are you? And don't ask questions that required one-word answers, because if they just answer with one word, now what? And another mistake I find that guys make, and this is because they've been listening to dating coaches, dating experts, or they've been reading articles and they say, here's some questions to ask, and they have absolutely nothing to do with the person's profile. Like someone once asked me in the first email they wrote, they said, if you could live in any other country besides the US, which would it be? Now, what does that have to do with anything about me and my profile? So of course, me being a smartass, I wrote back, it would be a country where people introduce themselves before they ask a question. Because, if you're trying to meet someone, let's say on the street, would you just walk up to them and go, if you could live in any other country? I mean, come on. First you introduce yourself, hey, la la la, and then so don't ask questions that have nothing to do with the person or their profile just because some dating coach told you to do that or some article online, because I know that's where you got it from, because otherwise you wouldn't be asking those questions. Now, with women, now I'll go over to beating up the women. No. So if the thing I find about the mistakes that women make is that if you want to be feminine energy in the relationship, then you need to show that right away, and you have to let the man lead. Don't think that you need to take charge of the communication, of keeping it going. Like I said earlier about the studies, men, if they're interested, they will hang in there. So you just mirror them. They say hello, you say hello. They say, how are you? You say, I'm fine, how are you? You put in as much effort as they're putting in. and you don't try to lead it anywhere. The only thing I would say is that, as I mentioned in an earlier podcast, you want to get to the phone sooner rather than later. So what you do is after about 3 back and forth texts or emails, and if they ask you a question, then you can say, well, I can tell you all about that when we talk. Or if you want to add a little bit of doubt in there, you can go, if and when we talk. Meaning it's not a given we're going to talk. And then at that point, they usually get the clue, they get the hint, and they're like, oh, okay, what's your phone number? And then, of course, you give them, as I mentioned in the other podcast, your sideline phone number that you use only for online dating. Now, there is an app called Bumble where women have to communicate first. So, okay, we have to communicate first. But the problem that I find there is that even though you have to send the first text, you after that have to let the guy lead the conversation, because what I find is that because I had to start the conversation first, so because the woman had to start the conversation first, they just kind of go with the flow. It's like I ask the question, they answer. I ask a question, they answer. And it's like that. So then I'm leading the conversation, and that's not what you want to do. And so at some point, or actually very quickly, if they don't ask a question, then you can just write back, I see, and a smiley face. So don't ask another question, but you need to respond. Otherwise, you look like you're not responding. You look like you're being rude or not interested. So you're giving them a response, but you're really not saying anything. So you just say, I see, and a smiley face. And one time I did that, and I never heard back from the guy, so I unmatched him. And one time I did that, and a few days later, he finally wrote. So you need to let the guy lead. Don't think you need to be the leader just because you started the conversation, because otherwise, if he's just following your lead and he's not really initiating, then you don't know if he's interested. Sometimes he's been trained by other encounters, other women, so he thinks, oh, okay, I'll just go with the flow her and let her lead. But if that's not what you want, then you need to set him straight, not by telling him, but by showing him. Or maybe he's just playing games. But either way, if a guy's interested, he will take the lead if you give it to him. And if he doesn't, then I guess he's not that interested. So if you'd like some help in figuring out what type of questions to ask, there's actually a book called Online Dating, 238 Questions, Getting to Know Someone. And these are questions that the author Rachel Ryder used with her husband when they were communicating online when they first met. And it's a look at what worked for them. They say, it's not necessarily going to work for everyone, but pick the chapters you can relate to, take some or all the questions, and tweak them to fit the person you are pursuing. And you can find that book on Amazon. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. And again, the title is Online Dating, 238 Questions, Getting to Know Someone, Rachel Ryder, Ryter. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments about this week's podcast, or if you're interested about private coaching, you can contact me at my website, theartoflove.net. If you're listening to this on iTunes, I would appreciate if you would rate and review my podcast. And finally, remember that love inspires, empowers, uplifts, and enlightens.